Worship of images, a perversion of religion. The second part of the commandment follows. It concerns worship which, if directed at images of God, is wicked, and if at other images, those of the saints, for example, of either sex, is doubly appalling. There are various steps in idolatry. The first step is when the human mind, bursting with pride and audacity, imagines God according to its own perception. And since it is both crude and ignorant, it merely conjures up an empty phantom. This is followed by another act of daring, when man tries to represent God outwardly in the same form in which he has conceived him inwardly. Consequently, the mind begets the idol, and the hand brings it to birth. That is the origin of idolatry. Men cannot believe that God is near to them unless there is some physical presence. That this is so is clear from the episode where the Israelites said to Aaron, "We do not know what has become of Moses. Make us gods who will go before us." Of course, they were well aware that he was truly God, whose power they had experienced in so many miracles. But they could not imagine that he was near to them unless, with their own eyes, they saw some physical likeness of him which testified that he was going before them. And so to convince themselves that God was showing them the way, they needed an image to precede them. We ourselves experience something similar every day. The flesh is never at rest until it finds some figment resembling its own nature, in which it exalts as if it were the very image of God. Therefore, in almost every age, ever since the world began, men have yielded to the desire to fashion images of God, so as to be sure by some visible sign that he was close to them. Thinking then that they saw God in such images, they worshipped him in them. And finally, concentrating on them all the powers of sight and mind, they grew more brutish still. As if some kind of divinity inhabited stone or wood, they were moved to reverence and awe. It is now quite clear that man never begins to worship images without willfully imagining some false corporeal likeness. Not that he actually thinks of them as gods, but he fancies that they contain a certain godlike power. Hence, if someone sets out to portray God in a certain likeness or in creaturely form, in bowing down to it and honoring it, he is already steeped in superstition. That was why the Lord forbade the fashioning of statues as symbols of him, and the hollowing of inscriptions or stones to which reverence is paid.